pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, your chair's moving good.
We're going to strike number 5 off the agenda for tonight. We won't have that discussion tonight. Other than that, I'll entertain a motion for the amended agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Closed meeting. Threat of litigation by the St. Cloud Times regarding release of tapes for the February 11th and February 26, 2014 closed meetings regarding Eric Johnson. This meeting may be closed pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05. Subdivision 3B for attorney-client privilege to discuss litigation strategy with the city attorney. With that, I'll entertain a motion and a second to close the meeting.
Moved.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So I will close the meeting at 6:31. Approve the minutes of the June 10th, 2014 City Council meeting as presented. Recommendation to accept the bids for the sale of the 1997 Chevy Blazer, a forfeiture vehicle, and award the sale of said vehicle to the high bidder, Ruben Zayas, for $800. Recommendation to accept the bids for the sale of the 1998 Dodge Caravan, a forfeiture vehicle, and award the sale of said vehicle to the high bidder, David Keese, for $525. Recommendation to approve increasing the hourly pay for election judges, including the head judge, to $9.50 per hour. And a recommendation to approve an easement identified as 2012-403 in a document for surveyor Dan Crone, also referred to as the Dolan easement. Recommendation to approve an easement identified as 2012-403B in a document from surveyor Dan Crone, also referred to as Mary's Highland Park easement.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Planning Commission recommendation, Ann or
me.
Bob? Who do we?
You know, that's a good question. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. You know, when we were looking at that, I think we're, you know, probably maybe on council, yeah.
Okay.
The planning commission met, what was it, the 16th? The 16th, and at that time, a good share of the downtown business owners operators were at the meeting as well, and they did a real nice job of presenting their position as far as where they were in regards to the idea of how we're going to improve the downtown as part of the reconstruction of Red River Avenue as well as Main Street, and we came up with a lot of really good ideas. But what it comes down to at this point is we have all of these great ideas, but we don't have enough ability to implement them, and we don't have an ability to put them all together in a working solution. So as such, what the downtown committee has done is met with a planner, an architect, is that what he's called, an architect? A landscape architect named Jeff Martin, and he's come up with some ideas, and he's put together a proposal, a bid, of what he would charge to do certain projects, certain portions of the project, and he's got some really good ideas, and the Planning Commission wholeheartedly supported the Downtown Committee's idea of moving forward with hiring of Jeff, and then also using his ideas to begin using that as a basis for the start of what the streetscape for the downtown would look like. So what we're asking for at this point is the idea of considering and working with Jeff Martin with regards to putting the information together. Again, you have to understand that he handed out basically it looks like an Excel spreadsheet that talks about all of the different steps that he would take, from getting consensus, from beginning plans to having meetings to there's a whole lot of things, pages and pages and pages long.
I have it with me.
Well, and again, I appreciate that, but there's no way to get that information to the audience at home. But the city, and thank you for that, the city council, we do have that information. I just don't know how to get to that information out to the people at home. But again, it's a multiple step process, and it's just jam-packed with all kinds of different steps within the process. But the bottom line is that the downtown committee has asked the planning commission, and the planning commission has made a recommendation to the city council that we go ahead with the hiring of Jeff Martin to do this process.
Questions from council? Do we have a line item we're gonna draw these funds out of?
We don't. Good question. What we had made note of in the planning commission meeting, that it is something that could be future assessed to the overall project, so it's certainly a reimbursable, and those present said, we get it, we understand that if we're gonna do it right. But right now, we do not have a line item, or certainly whatever line item we would pull it out of. I mean, it would be general consulting, that kind of thing, but it would go over budget.
So it would basically come out of general funds.
Would come out of
for the time being. Okay, that's, I guess, what I was wondering. Bob?
At the planning commission, Jen and Paul and I, we're sure to make sure that we mentioned it, and everybody here heard us and acknowledged the fact that what we talked about is that these funds would be part of the cost of the project, and the cost of the project would then be partially assessed back to the landowners immediately adjacent to the project, and some of it would then be also part of the general taxes that are paid by the city. But that in addition to that, the downtown council has agreed that they will put forth their best efforts to raise funds to help defer the cost of some of this project. So while there's a number out here right now, if they're going to try to raise some dollars to help pay for some of the cost of this, as well as raise money to help pay for some marketing and to pay for a whole lot of different things. So they have already agreed that in addition to the city putting in some money, that they are also going to be putting in a good deal of money as well.
Jan?
In addition to that too, not just the dollars, but the assistance.
Yep.
The downtown committee and planning commission and everybody had talked as far as being willing to work with him to provide assistance with some of these areas and possibly scale down a little bit based on the cooperation and assistance that we can do on some of those functions.
And I also, at the Chamber of Commerce board meeting, Kathy Faust was willing to allow us to have discussion about this as well. And the Chamber has agreed to back the project as well, to do as much as they can with regards to participating in the process. To again, the more we do, the less that he's going to charge us for it. And then also do what we can, the Chamber can, to raise funds to help defer some of the costs. So again, this is just another example of the beauty of what can happen here in Cold Spring. The downtown community is on board, the Chamber is on board, the Planning Commission's on board, and in a couple of minutes, we, the council, can show that we're on board. So again, this is going to be, I think this is going to be a real good project.
Other questions from council? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion on the recommendation then.
Moved.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Then the other part we talked about, and this again is another very exciting part, and I don't want to take a whole lot of this, so those of you that want to throw in your 2 cents worth, please do so. What the second part of this is those of you that have tried to shop in downtown Cold Spring at certain given times, you know that sometimes it becomes a bit of a challenge to find a parking place. So what we've been working with the downtown community with regard to is finding additional parking places. And we've identified some places that might be very good locations, but what we need to do is we need to have the prime location. We need to have it studied. We need to make certain that it actually can serve as a parking lot. And we have to find out whether or not we can do it and leave it as a dirt surface, or do we have to tar it? We have to, basically what we need to do is Brian, I think you used the term feasibility study. That's basically what we want to do, is authorize Brian to go ahead with a feasibility of using that particular space as a parking lot. And that, I guess the recommendation as it's written here, it says to go ahead with the actual purchase of it. So Paul, we're not even just asking for the feasibility, we're saying go for it, the whole thing?
No, we probably should. What had changed since Planning Commission and the council meeting is that at first, Dan Stile, representing the bank, had said that we weren't sure if we could split off the bank building itself along with the parking lot. So he said now, and after that, he said he'd be willing to actually be interested in selling just the parking lot or leasing it. So I guess what I was trying to get at with this was an overall look into it. So if you want to alter this to be feasibility study or to continue just on the parking lot itself, then great. But I think we were trying to look at an umbrella before, because Dan wasn't sure if the bank was going to be okay with just the parking lot.
Okay.
So
Okay, because
hibernize it or mutinize it.
and I apologize for not having read that in advance, but again, what I thought we were discussing today was the approval of the feasibility study, so that Brian can come back and tell us, yes, we can do it, yes, we will increase it by 30 to 60 or whatever number of parking spaces, and then we can actually negotiate a price, buy the parking lot, and actually start using it as parking.
So Bob, if I'm hearing you right, then the recommendation would be to approve the planning commission's recommendation to proceed with a feasibility study
Correct.
with
For the purchase, yeah.
Towards the
purchase
Yep.
of the Granite Community Bank property.
Correct.
Other discussion?
One second. And I want to say it was less than $1,300.
$12.37.
Okay, it's less than $1,300, $12.37. That not to exceed.
Is there other discussion? If not, I will entertain a motion on that recommendation.
Moved.
I was like,
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Food shelf update, Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Lynn, please. We need to have you on camera, please. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to be on your agenda tonight. I did know or hear that you were looking for an update on what's happening with the food shelf. And Kay Cook, who's the president of the Food Shelf Board, had wanted to be here but had other things happening, so she had asked if I would be here to give you kind of a update of the process that the food shelf is going through. You probably followed a lot of the news that was in the paper. For the last 2 years, we had a committee that was started by St. Boniface Social Ministry, but got together all of the churches in the area, and then we included all the Lions clubs to look at finding a new home for our food shelf, because the present location is not handicapped accessible and not very large. They've basically outgrown their space, and it'd been harder and harder. The more food that they were giving out meant more pounds of food had to be carried down the steps, and more pounds of food had to be carried up again. So when you're talking about 60 to 80,000 pounds of food going out of the food shelf, that was becoming an issue. So the group looked at finding a new place to rent. Couldn't find anything that met the needs, and then started exploring the idea of buying a piece of property. And it just so happened that the property owned by the Legion Club not the Legion itself, but the property across their parking lot, which had the Pillars of Health in it, was put up for sale, became available, and with the fundraising efforts of both the Lions Club and the committee, we were able to raise enough money so that we could start the process of buying it, and it has been purchased. We are also applying for grants. We're waiting for 2 major grants to be decided on. We've applied for grants from the Bremer Foundation and a grant from Lions International. The Lions International originally we're hoping would have paid for both the purchase and the remodeling of it, and it turned out that when they looked at the rules, they couldn't do the purchase of it, but they could do the remodeling. So we're still in the running for that. Bremer Foundation would also provide some funds that could be used to help pay for the cost of buying the building. But presently, and in this process, there was also a local board that was put together, which has representatives from most of the churches and Lions clubs that were involved to begin with. So this board with kind of an advisory group has continued working on the process, and plans are to start the demolition shortly. They should be hearing back on the grants by the end of July, and if everything goes well and we get one or the other grant, we should be able to complete the remodeling, and the hope is to open the new food shelf by probably about October 1st. So.
Questions for Lynn? Bob?
I understand that the food shelf where it is right now has been in the same location for a long period of time, and the landlord that has been there, or has been housing it, has been very gracious and generous with us for a long period of time. Would you be willing to help us out by giving a little bit of a thank you, a pitch to them?
Yeah, the Food Shelf Board is very grateful to the State Bank for offering that space in the past, since the food shelf began. We did let them know when we were looking for it. It wasn't that we weren't happy with the fact that they had offered the space, it was just it wasn't handicapped accessible. And they understood, and they also understood that it wasn't big enough anymore, because if any of you have visited the food shelf lately, there's food and shelves and supplies all over the place, so there's no place to move down there. But yes, we want to thank the State Bank for all that they've donated for so many years. It's very much appreciated. Just at this point, with the need in the community, it's time to move to something that's a little bit more handicapped accessible and a little bit larger. So with the new food shelf, they'll be more than doubling the space that they had.
Thank you.
Jan?
Thank you.
Do you know where the dollar numbers are as far as where the goal was and where you're at right now?
Okay, originally our goal was to buy the property, and it was listed at about 120,000, and remodeling is looking like it'll be about 40,000. Thanks to the generosity of the Legion Club in basically donating part of the cost of it, they brought the cost down to 89,000, and we're still looking at about $40,000 to remodel it. With what has been raised, I did not make it to the last meeting, so I don't have the updated budget numbers, but about a month ago, with what had been raised in the community, we were close to about $90,000. Wow. So.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's been a combination of what the Lions Club did, work from the churches, and then a lot of donations from individuals and businesses in our community, and some even outside of the community. So it's been wonderful to see everyone come together and work together for this project. And now, if one or the other of the grants come through, we'll be able to complete the remodeling.
Good job. Bob?
If people are interested, can they still have fundraisers? Can they still make donations towards the project?
Yes, there's an account set up at the State Bank, and you can donate towards the project. Or you can also, there's 2 accounts there, one which goes towards the building project, and then of course there's an ongoing need for food. So there's a second account where you can donate to continue helping the food shelf buy or use the resources of Second Harvest to get a better deal on food to provide for the needs of the community. So they're still taking donations. Another thing that will be happening, because we now have a board in place that's local, we are still using services of the Salvation Army to do some of the administration, but with the local board, we're going to have a more formal fundraising process, and it has been decided, I don't know how many of you had a chance to attend the fundraiser, the spaghetti dinner that happened in March at St. Boniface, but it was a great night. A lot of people came, sold a lot of spaghetti, had a silent auction, a raffle, and it was decided that it makes sense to do an annual fundraiser, and they have decided to continue. May not be a spaghetti dinner, although since that went over pretty well, probably will be a spaghetti dinner every March to continue raising money to provide for the food each year. You know, in the past, the food shelf has existed because of many generous donations, but it's been there's been no formal process to make sure that there was always enough money to pay for the needs. So sometimes I do know the volunteers were taking money out of their own pockets to provide for the needs, you know, buying fresh meat or milk or supplies like that that hadn't been donated. So the plan is that this board that has been set up will be making sure we have a fundraiser every year to meet the ongoing needs of both the food and the administration of the costs of maintaining the new building.
Thank you. Other questions for Lynn? Oh, thank you, good job.
Thank you.
And then the next item, Habit for Humanity update and invitation. Lynn?
Yes, as long as I was going to be on the agenda, I thought I might as well deal with a second issue. I'm also on the committee that's working on Habitat for Humanity build in the Cold Spring area. So we have a Rocori build project, and it's finally off the ground. We received a large grant from Thrivent Financial, and a family has been identified. A lot was donated, so they're starting construction on it. And instead of having the groundbreaking ceremony, when Habitat builds something, they do a wall raising ceremony. So that is set for July 9th at 6 p.m. at the location of the house, which is out on in Emma's Estates. It's right on the corner, pretty easy to see there. If you need the exact address, I can get it for you. I don't happen to have it marked on here. And we'd like to invite council members and the mayor or city administrator to attend. And we were looking if someone would like to say a few words at that ceremony. You're invited to be part of the ceremony, so if you want to get back to me and let me know if somebody can attend and speak that night, we'd love to have someone representing the city as part of that process.
Then what time, you said 6 o'clock?
6 p.m., July 9th. There will be food and refreshments that night, and ceremony. It's kind of a chance for the volunteers that are working on it, the family that will be getting the house, and the community all to celebrate the beginning of the process. Just get back to
Questions
you.
for Lynn on that?
And that was July 9th at 6 o'clock? Okay.
Hoping you don't have a city council meeting that
It's the 8th, I chopped.
So, any questions?
Count me in, I'll be there for sure, and
Okay, well, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Lynn. Recommendation to approve to approve changes to the personnel policy by amending Article 24 of the purchase policy in regards to purchase limitations and procedures. Paul?
This basically, part of your packet, a couple of changes here are really in three general areas, maybe two general areas. One on what employees have the ability to purchase, kind of bringing a little bit of maybe a cost of inflation type of element to that, or also backing up what you guys have said in the past of, hey, in the end run, is the budgetary line going to be black or red? That's what we care about. And so this was trying to give a little bit more flexibility, especially in Paul Hessian's world in public works, where, you know, whether you're buying chemicals or salt can easily exceed that. What we have now is a $1,000 purchasing limit, so bringing that to $2,500. And then on 4 down there for the idea of going from $1,000 to $2,500 for emergency purchases. And then basically 2 and 3 get into something that was highlighted by Baseball Inc. Actually had brought to our attention that this current policy is actually was what I think trying to reflect in the past state law. And state law on this had changed about 6 or 7 years ago, and we just haven't updated this. So this would now update and say what state law is. You could easily take 2 and 3 and say per state statute regarding bidding, but then you can do it, 6 of one, half a dozen of another. By doing it this way, you don't have to run to state statute and find out what is it. But this, at least it has it up in here to be able to actually reference to it. So that's really the reason for the 3 major changes.
Bob?
Administratively, is there a preferred route? Should we reference state statute so that whenever the state changes the rules, we automatically update our rules as well? Or administratively, would you prefer leaving it so that it's a set number until the council changes it?
Well, you want a wishy-washy answer? I like this. I do. Otherwise, we wouldn't have threw that out either. The only reason why this is preferable, because the league usually says try to take out of your codes any references to state statute, because a state statute changes, like let's say the number changes itself. Now all of a sudden you're referencing something that has to do with dog tattoos. That has nothing to do with the idea of what we were talking about at the time. So I think with this, it would be keep it as is, and then at least we know going forward, and maybe it can be recorded in the minutes that the preference for council in the city is to reflect state statute.
And if there is a change in statute, you can always bring it to the council for a proposed
At a later
amendment.
time. Bingo. Because maybe a future council wants to have it more restrictive. You have the ability to have it even more restrictive, so.
Bob?
So this gives the staff the ability to purchase things up to the new dollar numbers, 2,500 or whatever. It gives them the ability to, but the checks themselves still come back on a list, and every council meeting, we still approve the entire spending anyway. So we can still grill you one more time. So just because we're raising it doesn't mean we can't still grill you, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, just checking.
Other questions? No, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Recommendation to approve the Rise to the Top Don't Stop 5K run for Saturday, August 9th, 2014, co-sponsored by 3rd Street Brew House and FGHC Active, with the proceeds being donated to local charities. Anything on that, Paul?
You know what? Maybe I'll refer to the other Paul. Paul, do you know anything more to that? Or I know it's just kind of forwarded to me, and typically you've been kind of saying fine to races, so I don't.
Can I just ask for clarification, what's FGHC?
I was scared to death you were going to ask that question, Councilmember Dingman. I do not know.
Okay.
I think it's an organization that they're helping out, but does anybody else know by any odd chance?
Actually, I didn't really get too involved in that one.
Okay.
Pete Weber met with them and kind of verified that the route should all work, and he just briefed me, so I don't really know much more about it than that.
I'm guessing it
So
might
will
be
there
one
be
of the
some
energy
streets
drinks
closed?
they have or something?
Not closed.
No? Sorry, Jan, what was that?
I'm thinking that other co-sponsor is probably like one of the energy drink companies or something that they work with. That
I'm not sure.
Well, the roads will be closed at all, or just for a portion of time?
This, some might be barricaded where you can still access through them, but we're not going to detour any county roads.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Public Works Director Paul Heschen, water tower lease, antenna proposal. Bob, you wanna grab a seat next to Paul?
Let's see if you can do that chair.
Okay, certainly I'd like to have Lieutenant Dickhouse explain the reasons why they need some communication equipment on top of the south water tower. But the granite company allowed us to build a tower on their land, and they approve of the sheriff's antennas on there. And I verified that all the equipment that we have up there already should not interfere. And as far as tower construction, it should all be just fine. We have it all kind of laid out where they'd set a little building there where it would not be in our way. The tower is all designed for extra antennas, both from getting wires from outside to inside the pedestal and all the way up to the top. So it shouldn't be a problem for us. And from there, I'd like to have Lieutenant Dickhouse explain the reasons.
Thank you, Mr. Heschen, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Lieutenant Bob Dickhouse, Stearns County. Our request is really twofold, and what it is to, number one, to ask permission to place 3 antennas and a microwave dish on the top of the water tower. This is the south water tower. The purpose for this location is that historically the Cold Spring area, Rockville, and portions of the Lakes area have had poor or intermittent armor coverage since the inception. So basically what that means to you is the radios didn't work as well as we'd like them to. Through a series of tests and mapping programs, we're able to identify locations that would be the best for this type of equipment, and still provide an area that we could construct either a radio tower or use existing infrastructure such as a water tower. Cold Spring was right dead center in the middle of this. I think the granite ledge that comes from along the west edge of town here is basically the main obstruction for armor users in the city, especially down in this area. Our goal is to improve in-building coverage, and the closer you are to one of these radio antennas or one of these transmitter sites, the better your coverage is. So that's the purpose of having the antennas on the water tower. Number one, it's a good spot for them. Number two, it's an existing infrastructure, so therefore it's a good deal for all those involved. The other piece is that one of the antennas will be for paging the fire departments. I believe Cold Springs had a store and forward for many years, which basically captures the pages sent from dispatch and then rebroadcast them locally so the users can get their pages more effectively. This will basically eliminate the need for that and allow better coverage, including in-building penetration for these signals. The other piece of that request is to place a 12 by 20 equipment shelter, which supports the equipment required to have the armor site in Cold Spring or at the water site. What this would be is a prefab building that's basically poured concrete, constructed similar to the one that you might see next to a cellular telephone tower. They're pretty nondescript. There wouldn't be any signage on it, advertising, anything of that sort. But we would need to, put down some footings and things like that so that the building is secured and grounded, to R56 standards. All in all, this is it's a win-win, I think, for both the city of Cold Spring, EMS, police, fire, all the way around. It allows us to better serve the community of Cold Spring, Richmond, Rockville, the entire area, Wakefield Township, and it also saves the county some money in the long run, which obviously you and I all pay at the end of the day anyway. So that's all I really have. I'd entertain any questions you might have. I can.
Paul or Bob, the building, is the granite company okay with the building?
Yes.
Okay, the second question, Bob, you said so it will not have a repeater now?
Well, the armor, you would need the storing forward for paging. Is that what you're referring to?
Yep.
I'm not saying you can't use it, but you shouldn't need it.
Okay.
Currently, you're getting your signal mostly from, well, it's part of a simulcast system, but the two closest antennas for paging, one in Farming, the other one would be St. Cloud or Kimball. So if you take a look at a map, it's basically a triangle and you're right in the middle of it.
Yep.
So this will put you right in the shadow of one of those antennas. So it, like I say, not that you have to get rid of it, but I don't think you'll need it any longer.
And to Bob's point, with the radios losing, and Dave, you probably in the patrol do, but I know there are certain buildings down, like when we in a fire, we had the school, we have areas where we drop coverage in there where we don't have communication with the county. We have our radio to radio, but we don't have communication with county or other departments if you're on a mutual aid, so thank you, Bob, for trying to improve it in this area. I think it's a great situation, and it puts a lot of, we mutual aid with Richmond, Rockville, and Cold Spring, and when we have a call, and if we got people in the building, we just don't have that coverage, so this sounds awesome.
Yeah, it doesn't solve every problem. It's still a radio. There's still places where it may not work, but this should greatly improve your communications coverage in this area. And that's good for everybody.
Man, I gotta attest, it's not great.
It's not great now. This is part of a 3-site build-out. There's one in Cold Spring, one in Paynesville, and one in Sauk Center. In Sauk Center, we did essentially an identical setup, with the exception that they have a larger base on their water tank, so the equipment is stored in the base of the water tank, or water tower, I guess. And this one will have to place a building there. But we've also been working with Gary Tyson with Cold Spring Granite, because I believe the land is leased from the granite company. So we're essentially keeping them right in the loop. Granite company's been very supportive of this build out, and have been helpful at every turn. So as Mr. Hession here.
Other questions for Paul or Bob? Bob?
This is only sort of done in tongue-in-cheek, but we want to support you, and we want to do everything we can to encourage what you're trying to do for us, so we can show that we're doing all we can to help the county. Can you make sure that Commissioners Lansmeyer and Mergen and all of the others, that they know that we're doing all we can to help the county, so that they can, keep a warm spot in their hearts for us?
Absolutely. Thank you. Share that with them next time I see you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
To be perfectly honest with you, as I wrap up this project, I will be giving another presentation at the county board, and I will mention that.
Thank you.
Other questions for Bob? If not, I'll entertain a motion then.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the tower antenna on the south tower. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
One last question, how soon will this happen?
We'll ask Bob that question.
I'm sorry?
How soon will this be happening?
We are going to direct our public works director for the county to begin immediately. The equipment has all been purchased. It's stored at the Law Enforcement Center in St. Cloud. All we need is this final step. The building has been purchased. We just need to put the footings in, and we're on a go. So it's just a matter of time now.
Is that something you draft up?
Yeah. And permits we've also worked on behind the scenes too, so we're
Okay.
basically ready to fly with this thing any moment. So we just needed thumbs up.
This was really the last step of the last hurdle we had to cover. So.
Very good. Anything else? Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Paul?
Yes, just the skate park. I'll try to make this brief. We've talked in the past what poor condition it's in. The asphalt is old, and as it ages, it seems like the rocks really appear more. It's really rough, not very good for skateboarders anymore. But the bikers like to be in there, and we haven't allowed bikes in the past. And we just took out 2 big pieces of equipment. Well, the biggest piece, that big half pipe, we took it out because it's just rotten. And there's another homemade piece in there that we took out because we just don't trust it anymore. So there isn't much left for skateboarders anymore. So we would like to allow people to take their bicycles in. And we just need your approval to do that. And I wish I would have checked with insurance earlier. Chris Dockendorf pretty much takes care of our insurance. And I checked with her this morning, and she didn't really have enough time to confirm, but she believes there won't be any problem. You know, they wouldn't say no to bicycles. Insurance company would definitely say yes, but she claims that the questions in the past about it have always been, is it tier 1 or tier 2? And that means the size of the equipment. And this is small equipment for a park, so it's tier 1, so we're insured based on a tier 1 park. So Chris Dockendorf doesn't believe any of that would change. But I guess as long as we get confirmation from the insurance company, then we're asking for your approval to open up the skate park to bicycles.
Bob?
Did you run this past Chris Boucher and the police department?
Yes.
They have no problem with it?
Right.
Okay.
How about the park board?
Did you run it past?
Yes,
them?
that's when we decided that we thought we should, so,
Okay.
good thing you asked.
Other questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion then.
I'll make that motion. Pending it's okay with the insurance company.
Motion is contingent that it's okay with the insurance company.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anything else, Paul?
No.
City engineer report, Brian.
Evening.
Good evening.
All right, couple of quick updates. Construction continues on County Road 50. We have the sewer main in, they're working on water and gonna be starting on services soon. So, just a note to anybody that was looking to have their service replaced or was thinking about doing their private service, now would be a good time to start thinking about that. I think a number of the homeowners out there have already kind of started that process, but for those that may be watching and haven't, now would be a good time to think about that.
Have you sent a letter to all the homeowners with that concern or with that thought?
It's gonna, I think we're putting out another newsletter. We have 2 newsletters that have gone out. I think there's another one going out next week and that'll be on there as well.
Bob?
If a homeowner should think about it and decide that they want to talk about it, who do they contact?
They would, best person to contact would be Dan Salo, who's our construction representative on site, and his phone number has been on the newsletters already. So, and I'm sure many of them are very familiar with him. He's been helping them out. You know, he's been helping as well with. We're trying to make sure that garbage services are uninterrupted. You know, so I think the plan is, or it's been working, that you put out your garbage as normal. If it's in the way or construction's in the way, the contractor will move the garbage so that the garbage company can get to it, and then they'll return your can. So I think a lot of the folks out there are very familiar with Dan.
Thanks.
Second thing for County Road 50, in case anyone didn't get the email, I did get it in, didn't make it in for the packet, regarding the turf establishment bid for County Road 50. If there's any questions on that, otherwise I'd be looking for, we'd be looking for approval of the low bidder, Schrodens Incorporated.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Bob?
Same company? The seating people, we used them before or something?
Yeah, it's the same company that was the low bidder on the seating for Brewery Hill.
Okay, and how do they do on that project?
Excellent.
They did very well?
Yeah, very
Okay,
good.
so we should expect very good results?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's also why we bid separately, just for that seating work, so we don't get some company from far away that maybe doesn't care about coming back. We bid with local companies that we know do a good job and have a vested interest in the community.
Thank you.
Other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, moving on, Second Avenue feasibility report. Some emails that have gone back and forth, and the city attorney has started the process to obtain the easement or to obtain so that we can build a road on Second Avenue. That process is started here. Again, that was a minimum 90-day process, so we'll see what becomes of that. Maybe it spurs some different negotiations with the railroad as well. So more updates to follow on that. And then we have started work on the plans, so that if in the event we are able to build, we have plans ready to go.
Good.
All right, and then on the 11th Street Northeast connection, we talked at the last meeting about bringing the feasibility report to the potential developer there. Dan Stile from the EDA and I met with the potential developer, I think last week, and they're at this point reviewing the costs and reviewing the report, and I haven't heard anything back from them yet. So I believe if we had talked, the next steps would be if they're on board with things, the next step would be to have a neighborhood meeting with inviting the folks from North Point.
Any questions on 11th Street or anything for Brian? Anything else, Brian?
That's it.
That's it? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Baseball Commission concession stand. Sorry for the long wait.
Mayor,
Paul?
I'd like just a moment while Brian is setting up here and Tom gets situated, just make a clarification about bicycles in the skate park. That I have talked to Chris Boucher about this in the past, but as far as since the park board said at the last meeting that we should allow bicycles, then I haven't talked to Chris. Jason Zimmerman talked to Eric Boucher. So I guess I can't say that for a fact that Chris Boucher would approve this.
But you have no reason to believe that he wouldn't.
Right, from past discussions.
And I wouldn't change.
I just want to clarify that.
Well, if he thinks it's an issue, just bring it back up to the council.
Sure.
Brian, we can't see that.
Better now?
Oh, much better.
You may have to stand.
Yeah. Okay. Mayor, council, I'm here representing the Cold Spring Baseball Association, and in particular the concession stand and party deck project that we have going. I know we've spoke with you in the past, and we've kind of showed you the preliminary plans and the ideas of what we're going to do. These are the most updated plans. I don't want to, I think everybody was kind of on board on what the idea was, and I think what I really want to talk about a little more is the financing and how we're going about getting the bids and stuff like that. But I just wanted to kind of show here, this is coming off the main grandstand on the left-hand side. The ramp coming up here along the grandstand. See, this is what we need to come off the main grandstand. It'll come around on top of the concession stand itself and get up to here. That's there because it needs to be wheelchair accessible. So in order to do that, we had to put that ramp. It's a little bit longer, gets all the way up here, but then it gets to the level we need it to be to. This because underneath here is the concession stand itself. So we needed the ceiling to be high enough. So we needed that ramp to go along the edges. We have a little walkway over here, and then this is the party deck over the dugout. Underneath that party deck is the like a locker room area for the teams, which we really have never had. That would encompass the high school, the Legion, the Rockies, the Springers, and the Silver Springers. All would be underneath there, and be able to put their equipment, that kind of stuff, and be nice and secure. Again, which is something we really haven't had up there. As far as the project itself, kind of the main reason we wanted to start this is we're looking to try to make, for one, the party deck is kind of we're trying to make the fan experience a little bit better. I think we haven't really done a lot there. The field itself has been a tremendous field. I think everybody that plays on the field realizes it's a great field, but we're looking to kind of the ancillary stuff around there to make the experience a little bit better. This party deck is kind of, that's kind of the newest thing to be able to have a nice viewing area of the game. The concession stand itself, the concession stand we have right now, there's a couple things that absolutely needed upgrading. One of them is the security of the doors itself. This would be roll-up doors. Another one is this current concession stand does not have hot water in it. So speaking from somebody who has closed the concession stand down, when you pile in 3 or 4 different pots and pans in the back of your car at 11:30 at night and bring it home and clean them out, that's a problem. There's another guy over here that does it on much more than I have, Kurt Hamish over here, but I mean, we're looking to try to get hot water so we can actually clean that stuff right after the use and keep it in the concession stand itself, rather than having to take it home and do it and bring it back the next day. So, I don't know if there's any questions on this itself right here. These are emailed. I know Paul has this in an electronic version, so if anybody wants this, you can certainly have it. What I more wanted to get into now was what we're doing is we've started to collect the bids for this. And it was our assumption a little bit, I think we're a little bit, and I don't want to, this isn't a means to push anybody by any means, but because we're hosting the state tournament next year, we feel it's very important to get this project, if we're going to be able to do this, to get this project done by the end of this year, if at all possible. We saw what the winter can do in the spring and how sometimes it can be very, very long. And we don't want to have next year having to do these projects finish up when that's the actual year we're going to be hosting the tournament. So we're hoping to have this project done by then. Which means somewhere in the mid-July area, this probably needs to be started in order to be able to finish it, is what I'm hearing from the people that know a lot more about that than I do. Randy Bell is actually the general contractor for it. He's doing it free of charge for us. Former Cold Spring Rocky and Rocori player, obviously. And he's started to collect the bids. I have some of the bids right here as far as the numbers, and there are some that we tentatively got last October that we're still missing 4 of them. What it looks like for this entire project is about $115,000 up. That would be with everything included, but where we, at least initially, have been able to shave that down is, for instance, Joe Heron, in the bid was $3,200 for some cabinets and countertops in the concession stand. Joe Heron has graciously donated those. That's in the bid just to show you that it's there, but that's $3,200 that would come off the top of that. We also have a couple of coolers that will go in there that are kind of along. The coolers that we have in the concession stand now are very old and not, they're just not, they don't work properly, and so we ended up going to buy some new coolers. That's in there too as a $3,600 expense, I think, but we've already paid for those, so that would come off. What we're hoping is to get that number to under 100,000. I know you had that discussion earlier. What we kind of want clarified is what is the actual process if we can't get that down to under 100 for whatever reason. What's our process? What do we need to do on our end? I know there's discussion of formal bids, and I guess we don't know exactly how that process works. And what would be the process if we get it under 100,000? Then what do we need to do? I'm looking for your guidance on that, for those 2 things.
I can help with that one. Literally what was approved tonight basically follows, most of state statute minus kind of one change is that basically if you can get it under that 100,000, Tom, then you're just looking at, you need to get 2 quotes and city council approval, which, you were basically thinking of doing and would obviously bring the city council as well. The quotes must be kept on file for 1 year. The city council does not need to authorize the seeking of quotes. So you can basically just go out and get the quotes, or they don't have to tell you where to go for quotes, those kind of things. That they could, but they don't have to. And now if it's over 100,000, that requires sealed bids, advertising requirements, and city council approval. So basically the only thing that would fundamentally change is that you need to do sealed bids and advertising.
So by advertising, is that something, one place, the Record, Cold Spring Record would suffice? Or is there multiple places we need to advertise? Do we know that?
No, that's a really good question too. And that's a really good question. When we typically put out things, Paul, like when we did the Lion Shelter or other things, did we just do the Record or Angie?
It has to be public.
Did we put it in the Times or other building magazines or things like that, or?
Yes, it
Okay.
cannot be just local.
Okay.
And a time frame, week, 2 weeks?
I think usually 3 weeks,
I think it's either 2 or 3.
2 or 3 weeks? Okay. So it's our goal to attempt to try to get that number down, and Randy's working on that right now to get the number under because of the time constraint we're under. But if not, then we'll have to go out and do those sealed bids and advertise it.
And like we talked about too, outside of the meeting, if even if you broke it up, it's still the sum total within a calendar year or that project of 100, of the 115. I mean, if there was something you could push up saying, okay, we're just not going to do this $5,000 project or whatever, or some part of it until years from now, it just doesn't sound like you can do that though, but
Okay, now
then that would be separated out.
Okay, now, so that being said, because we were kind of under the impression, we are also doing another project that's not as much under a time constraint, but it's the seating part in the main grandstand.
Okay.
Again, the reason we're trying to get all these done is because we're hosting a state tournament next year. It just makes sense to try to get them done now. We don't host, it's somewhere between 1 in every 10 or 15 years that we'll host it again. So it makes more sense to do this now and then use the funds that we make from the state tournament to help pay for this, rather than push it off and do it after the tournament. Then we wouldn't host another tournament until maybe 2028, something like that. So it makes more sense to do it now. So the other project we have with all the wood that's on the seating in the grandstand area, it's been there forever and it's rotting, and we replaced board after board here, board there, and the floor itself is pretty bad. It's financially, it's not a great way to go about it for upkeep and for maintenance and that kind of thing. So what we have proposed is we have actually 2 different types of proposal we're looking at, and I want to know what, I guess my question is that going to be under one big huge project then? Or would they be able to be separated? Because this one was roughly a $50,000, so the total that we're looking at is somewhere in that. I think we'll be able to get this project down to about 100, so it's about 150,000. That's not a firm number, but that's pretty close.
I would think they're 2 different separate projects.
They're 2 separate.
I was just gonna say the same. That one is really maintenance and one is a new improvement project. This is a new improvement project, the other is maintenance. So that's not held against when looking against those things, it's just the overall project itself. No different than when we do city projects, public improvement projects, let's say a street project somewhere, they don't take, well, did you do some patchwork somewhere else in the city or did you do another one over here? It's just that individual project. But it's not like taking that individual project and saying, okay, we're gonna divide it up with curb and then sidewalk and then, tar, that kind of stuff. That's the common sense that they want to say, like, within this. So like this, it wouldn't be like railings are different than block, they're different than cement, this is separate than your seating project.
Okay, so ideally, we'd try to get this project to under 100,000. The other project is about 50. And then the last thing I guess I want to talk about here is we're going to put those 2 together. And this is something we'd like to get done this fall. If everything works out with the council's blessing, if everything works out, we'd like to try to get that accomplished this fall so it's ready to go for the 15 season. That being said, is with right now in our baseball commission checkbook that we have, after God willing that we have decent weather on Saturday and we make what we made roughly last year on this day in the park, we should have approximately $50,000 that we would like to put towards that. Cut that down to about 100,000. We've talked, I think Dwayne Krieger has talked with Chris about financing the rest of that through the city on she had expressed like a zero finance charge type 4-year type loan through you guys. If that's feasible, what we'd like to do, what we request is, and this is obviously up to you guys, is to see if by doing that, over the course of the next 4 years, we would owe basically $25,000 a year. Again, the numbers are going to fluctuate a little bit based on when we get all the final stuff. We're hoping that we can finance 5 of that, and then we're asking if the city if there would be a possibility the city would be able to pick up the other 12.5 over the course of a 4-year period. So I know I met with the park board last night. I know there's nothing budgeted for it right now, and I don't know if that's an inflated number. I don't know. I'm just asking to see if we could get that in the budget and possibly get the city to pitch in for that part of it, and then we would do the other, basically 100,000 of it, and the city would pick up the other 50. That's our request.
Have you had, or any of the discussions that they had with Chris? I mean, is that something that's feasible?
It is. I mean, a lot of times interfund loans are done at a percentage. So let's say, you want to do something for a road project, you want to borrow the money from the water fund, you pay it back at a percentage, that kind of deal. But in this case, it's a little different because, this is something that we could be paying for entirely on our own. So the idea that they're coming up with monies as well to be able to help fund a park is kind of the trade-off of not getting interest off of the deal. And this is probably more of a question for yourself, Mr. Mayor, and Councilmember Statter. When we looked at baseball commission things once upon a time, we knew this was coming, and we generally said that this is what we were going to lean toward. Is that right, or am I off kilter? That we were going to do something to be able to help or finance that. We knew there was going to be improvements made out there.
I know we had the discussion, but Dave, do you recall what they were? That was
I know.
a couple of years ago.
I just don't know if we ever gave that impression or not, but I certainly support it, whatever it's worth on the, city administrator end, or,
We're gonna work with
Yeah.
these guys to,
I know we talked about, their labor, they've, over the years, their labor that they do, but the park was kind of offsetting some of the costs, that the city would have incurred otherwise too, so I mean, I'm along with Paul, I think, it's a great park, it's used by a ton of people in town. I mean, we do upgrades at other parks also, so I would have no issue with the city helping with the cause if they're willing to take on 2/3 of it. I wouldn't have an issue with the city taking on 1/3 of it.
I don't either, and I don't have any heartache over that loan piece of it too, with doing the advance and.
Yeah. I mean, we do it like you said, interloan or something.
yep, we've done those before, and can by law, so.
and they're dumping a lot of money in themselves to make that park really nice.
Well, and because of the economic stimulus that gives, every time they have a tournament, every time, whether it's just a weekend tournament, whether it's the state tournament, whether it's Legion, it doesn't matter. Anytime they do anything like that, the number of bodies that come into town, it's good for the city. It really is. So I have no problem whatsoever with that loan at 0%. I have no problem with that.
Yes.
You had a question?
Yeah, actually, I was just gonna ask a question to Tom or anybody else. Roughly how many people are expected to come through for the tournament next year?
That's probably better suited for Kurt. Do you have an idea?
Well, it varies. It's always hosted at 2 sites. Of course, we're co-hosting with Watkins next year. It's anywhere from 17 to 25,000 people that attend that tournament in
Sure.
3 weekends. It goes Friday, Saturday, the first weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the first 2 weekends. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, concluding on Labor Day, the third weekend. And generally in the past, attendance has been very well attended, and the tournament has been in Cold Spring. And I think a lot of that has to do with baseball's big here in Cold Spring to begin with, and we have a beautiful baseball park. We like to keep it that way, and that's one of the upgrades we'd like to do, so we can continue to keep it that way. And you guys probably have seen a couple of years ago, the Twins put out a calendar on 12 baseball parks in Minnesota. Cold Spring was featured in one of them. That's a big thing to be featured in one of the 12 amateur baseball parks in Minnesota, because there's a lot of nice amateur baseball parks in Cold Spring, so this goes to show where we rate in that category.
Other questions?
To let you guys know too, a lot of the stuff they're doing is all maintenance-free stuff, so it's not like they're gonna have to be touching this after they put it in.
Good point.
That was a big concern when we went through. We wanted to make sure that we weren't gonna leave in 10 years, we were gonna have to do this whole thing over again. We wanted to make sure we did it right the first time and pay for it and make sure that this is something that's gonna last for a long time. Like they did, this grandstand's been here for 70 years, it's been here for a long time, it's served its purpose. If we can add to it now and make it a little bit better and have it go for another 50 years, that's the idea.
Anything else? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor.
Okay,
Oh. Go ahead, Paul.
Just thought you'd like to know before you motion and vote that we did have another park board meeting last night specifically about this. And knowing that it's coming up at the council meeting tonight. And the park board does approve of their plans here that you see for a concession stand and party deck. And also about improving the seating. And the seating that the park board would like to see would be replacing the wood boards with aluminum. So just want you to know the park board's take on it.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
My question is that what's in the plan right now? You mentioned that to replace all the wood was a $50,000 additional project. Is that kind of what you had in?
We had two plans kind of we went through, and one kind of was late to the game, to be honest. And one of them is have somebody come in and power wash and pressure wash all this old paint that's on there that we need to dispose of properly as a hazardous waste because of it's been on there for so long, and then recoat it. And then take all the wood off the benches and replace it with a maintenance-free metal. That was one of them, and that came back at roughly $50,000. The other one that we came back with is what actually Watkins did at theirs, and they put, instead of benching, at least to start, I don't know if you're familiar with the runners are about 8 inches or so high, and then they go about maybe 26, 28 inches this way, and then they go up again 8 inches and go over. That's how the stands are right now. We would take like a rhino decking and go up and over 2 of them. So it'd be about a 5-foot platform with the rhino decking. And then just do that all the way up. So you would actually eliminate roughly half the seating. But we feel because of the party deck and with the grandstand that's now out on the first baseline, and we have some seating on the third baseline, that we'll have plenty of seating. What we think, this is kind of the new wave. I know Shakopee has it. There's some of the nicer parks down the metro area in that area have done stuff like this. And what our thought would be then, right now we don't have the ability, because those runners are too short, to be able to put any bucket seats in type of stuff to make some real comfortable seating like that. If it worked, and there were some questions last night at the park board that the weight and there's some different things, we're going to have to get an engineer to come in there and do some work on that. But if it works, that would be something we would also propose, and then that would be something we would have to just vote on. But we'd have the room then to attach some bucket seating on this rhino decking. Right now, because those runners are too short, it's not a code. It doesn't meet code, so you wouldn't be able to put any bucket seating. You just have to go all benching. And we thought one of the ways to alleviate the cost of this would be, and we feel we'd have some pretty strong, be able to raise some pretty strong dollars for this, is for whether it's a bucket seat or a bench seat or whatever kind of seating is, we'd like to sell little plaques. It's the Kurt Hemish family, and put a price tag on it. And if you can have your plaque there right on into whether it's a bucket seat, whether it's a bench, whether it's even the rhino decking, put it in there and say, for a $200 donation or whatever it might be to help, you can have your name engraved in the park. Especially the people that have spent a lot of time at the park, I think everybody's kind of thought that was a nice idea to be able to, I'm willing to spend $200 to have my name there. I've been there long enough that I feel like let's do it, So I think we'll be able to cut that $50,000 cost, whatever we decide to do, if it's the metal or if it's the rhino decking, down considerably. Maybe not pay for the whole project, but I think we'll be able to drop it down considerably.
Bob? Is it possible that we can break this into 2 pieces then? The one for getting this done, I think we can pretty much agree to doing that right now. Let you do some more work on the benching and all that kind of stuff. So for now, can we break it into two pieces?
Absolutely.
And then the second question that I have is, in the past, this council has had a little bit of heartburn with regard to naming rights. Do we want to give them some guidance with regards to the idea of doing the naming rights? I think it's a great idea.
Naming rights for the park or for the?
With regards to the bucket seats or to the did you say rhino decking?
Rhino decking, whatever type of seating we put there, we just thought if it's a rhino decking, we don't really have any seats there. It'd be every 8 feet, just be able to put a plaque and saying this is again Kurt Hemish or Bill Hulls or we especially feel like the people that have been working up there at that park for 30, 40, 50 years would be very interested in putting their name on some store seating.
So is the council okay with the idea of the naming rights?
I see no issue.
Okay, excellent. I think that's okay. So earlier you asked for a motion for the $100,000, and then you put your hand up.
I did, and I just wanted to clarify maybe what the exact motion would be, maybe for Angie's sake too, and for you guys. Any improvement to city property needs to be approved by council. So that's one of the things, is approving, the improvements to be made. And then the second part of it was the financing that Tom proposed, approving that as well. So just to be clear, approving this means that.
Do the same.
Yep.
Okay, so if I can.
And that's probably that, and then what Councilmember Thiel's suggesting is a separate motion for the maintenance piece of it for the seating.
Okay.
So this would just be for
That's what I was going to ask you. Okay.
So I will entertain a motion on the stand renovations or the party deck.
Okay, are we looking at a dollar amount though for that, or right off the bat, or?
Well, if I understood them correctly, they want to get it going, and if it's over 100, they have to go through the bid process, and then they're not going to be able to get it done. So what I thought I heard Tom say is they'll find a way to do the completed project, because again, Paul said you can't cut it up.
Right.
So you have to do the whole completed project, and it has to be under 100. That's what you heard too?
That is sure the goal, and if not, then obviously we'll have to go through that process. But that's, once we get the approval from you guys, I think we've kind of held back on trying to go to some of the local, the granite company, the 3rd Street, and some of the people to say, would you be interested in helping us out on this project, until we got approval from you guys that we can move forward with it. Once we get that approval, I think then it's our job to go and try to get as much local support as we can from the businesses, and if we can, from the people that are involved in this project, if we can get some donations and help get that number down to under 100,000, that obviously is the goal. And very, very quickly, hopefully, we can make that happen.
We don't know for sure where we're gonna stand on that, but just for instance, I was talking to Joe Herring about it one day, the next day, he comes back and tells us they're willing to donate the cabinets, which we have on there at $3,200, because he's so proud of what baseball is in Cold Spring. And we're hoping there's a few more people willing to do that, but we don't want to jump the gun or put the cart in front of the horse until we get your approval before we start asking people to go ahead and to do those things. But I got a feeling a lot of that stuff's gonna happen that way once we get the ball rolling.
Okay, and I got,
Go ahead, Dave.
my question then is if they're gonna do that, does that have to be part of the bid process if they're getting that stuff donated?
That's a good question.
Yeah, is it the project price is 115, but we only have to actually pay 100? Is it still over $100,000 project?
Brian, what's your take on that?
There's
I
two
mean,
different ways you can look at that too, is can we get the people that are doing the work to donate and shave off? These are just the initial bids. Can we go back to them and get this? So then that way there wouldn't be a concern, I don't believe, correct? If we can get the actual bidding down, instead of 25,000 for precast, it's gonna be 18. Obviously, that's part of the bid, so that just came down 7,000.
Yeah, Tom's right with that, and thank you,
So
Brian.
that part, but now if we do go out to local businesses, would that be included as well? If, let's say, Third Street doesn't have any financial stake in doing any part of the project, but they're willing to donate $10,000, for instance, that's just a hypothetical. Would that actually shave that down?
I don't think it would either. I think, right, if you're talking physical materials being added and then the actual price going down, yeah, like, is a lot of that block into there, or is there gonna be a lot from Cold Spring itself, Tom? Are you looking at that, or granite
Yeah,
elements?
there's gonna be granite, but it's a lot of block too. The concrete and the precasting and stuff like that is the biggest expense that I'm seeing on here. And I could certainly,
Because
some of the bids that we have here, I have, the stuff on the front page here is what we have.
one thing I may, just to interrupt you quick, Tom, if I may, and this is the kind of support and what you've talked about in the second part of this with seating and recognition. If you guys are okay with recognition for the seating, maybe you can give some kind of go-ahead for these guys as they work with other donors to say there would be some kind of recognition for donations at this, so that it helps keep that under 100,000. So it isn't promising what, like you've got to have your names in neon letters or something, but maybe there'd be some kind of plaque to be able to acknowledge what Westwind has done with Joe Herring's donation already, and if you can get even the block folk, I mean, if you're going through, what's the one in St. Cloud, or is it?
I don't think it's AMCON.
AMCON, I was thinking
You know
of.
what, Brandy's been doing all that, and I don't have.
Whoever it is, I don't want to give a name that's, but if council's okay with that as a part of the motion, that might be another one to say you're allowed to go forward and give at least, I'm trying to come up with the right wording for that, but be able to say like, we would give some kind of recognition at the park, a permanent recognition for donations.
And again, I agree with what you're saying, because I think that's going to be an integral part of paying for this whole thing. But my concern is the price of the project itself. If the bids come in at 115, then the project is a $115,000 project, and we have to bid it. If the bids come in at 99, it's under 100 and we don't have to bid it. So if what we're promising people is recognition in return for lower bids, I don't know how you were going to address that. My point is, if it's a $115,000 project that we only have to pay 99 for, it's still a $115,000 project, which means we have to bid it.
Brian?
I love technology. Brian, why don't you just say it out loud, buddy? Okay, Brian said, like, what about the examples for granite company purchases, material donates to them? I think that's exactly what Bob's getting at back and forth with this, is the idea of, And I'm trying to wrap my mind around the two to find a way, a solution for it, because, yeah, your bid is your bid, you're done, but if there was some way beforehand to say, okay, this is what the normal bid would be, here's a pre-bid, but now we're gonna give you our final bid, and now there you can see an obvious difference, that's the donation, now you get a little recognition on a name plaque that you've actually donated.
But the bid itself, okay.
The bid is still the bid in the end.
There's a person's name on there, his name's Randy, I don't remember his last name, that's
Right.
not important. But Randy says, my original number was $10,000, but under the circumstances, I love baseball in Cold Spring, I'll do it for 7. Okay, you add his 7 plus the block plus the sum of that is 99, that's the bid, we're under 100, we don't have to go out to bids. I think that's okay. I have no problem with that. The problem that I have is Randy says, nope, I want it at 10, but then I won't make you pay the full 10. I'll give you a donation of the difference. Now it's 115 or whatever. Now it's over the number. We're stuck. We have to bid it. So
I see.
I know it sounds like semantics, but it's also state law.
No, I think that it's our charge now to go out and try to get Randy to come down to
Yes,
7.
exactly.
And just say that's your bid, it's
Yeah.
7 and not 10.
Correct.
And if hopefully we can do that and shave that roughly $15,000 off the top.
And it's like if they donate the countertops, do they even have to be in the estimate if the material's been provided?
No, that's the idea. Yep,
The
anything
115 is
physical.
already taking off the cabinets, and the beer and pop cooler for $3,200 was already purchased, so that'll come off there, so.
If I understand, sorry, Tom. My understanding is this is a construction project. If you add tangible personal property to that, that's ancillary, that's in addition to, so we don't have to include that. So the cost of the personal property, the coolers, that kind of stuff, that doesn't need to be included in the construction bid.
So the walk-in cooler, for instance, would not have to be included,
That's my understanding.
because that's $12,000 in here.
A walk-in cooler.
That an actual
Well, actually, that might be
All the beer,
attached.
pop, candy, anything that needs
It's
to be
attached to the
stated in a
real
cooler
estate, it
for
might
extended
become
period.
fixture.
It's not even going in
It's not in the bid.
that part there.
Right.
It's actually gonna go in the third door of the existing grandstand.
Thank you. Right, no.
Then it shouldn't have to be included.
Yeah, so that's not part of
So now we're down,
Just like the
now we're down to
seating is
103. If you take, because that 12 is in there, so if you took that 12 out of there, we're down to 103. It's a much easier task now to be able to get that down to 99.
Yeah, no.
Again, if the total construction price is under $100,000, I think we can make this work.
Okay.
And then from there, if people want to give a gift and in recognition of that gift, they want to be given some recognition, again, I think the council has spoken and we're willing to allow for naming rights. So, but in order to avoid having to put this out for bids by state law, I think we have to get the number has to be under 100.
Okay.
Right?
And I just want to say for the record too, there are tons of people that love baseball and their donations that they give. I don't want to question that they want to see their name somewhere, but anybody who likes to donate at some point, they want to make money or they're a business affiliation, they want to see their name somewhere. And we have a right to honor that great donation that they've given too. So I just want to make it clear that I'm not questioning the motives of people that want to donate. It's always nicer if they can get their name.
Yep.
So.
Jan.
Because the construction is on the park owned by Cold Spring, even though the baseball commission is kind of in charge of it, does the city have to administer, like the payment of the bids, the payment of the subs and all of that?
What was the conversations on that? I
We
would
talked about
assume
that
so,
last night,
but
and Paul thought so.
Yes, I
Yeah.
really believe we would. It's a
Yeah.
city project. We
Yeah.
have to pay for it, and so it's clearly a city project. They're just gonna reimburse us.
yep, I think
Would
so.
there be any question with Randy Bell continuing to be the general, but do the work and go get the bids and have Paul kind of be the actual general overall to take care of that aspect of it?
Yeah.
Because Randy, obviously, we discussed this last night, that Randy knows these projects, this is what he does for a living, so instead of having Paul do something that's out of his comfort zone, would that make sense?
And in addition to that too, working with Chris Dockendorf, because all of this gets audited at the end of the day next year by our city auditor. So all of the documentation needs to be there, all the I's dotted, T's crossed. So, there's no doubt that anybody would ever accuse anybody of anything going south, or, it would be done right.
Paul?
I'd just like to kind of give the example of, in 2002, when we built the Frogtown shelter, and I had to be the general contractor, but I don't know anything about building construction. So I had to bid and find all the subs, and then when we got the subs all together, I made it clear that I'm the general contractor and I don't know what I'm doing. When you lose, sit down and figure it out. So in this case too, if I have to be general contractor, that's fine. Randy Bell would really be doing it. So I'm not sure how those two really compare, but for the park shelter, I had to be.
I don't see why we would need to have him as a general contractor. I think we just have to do the administrative side of it.
Correct, yeah.
Other discussion? Otherwise, somebody want to read back the motion we're going to have here?
That's a good question, Mr. Mayor. I didn't exactly write it down. I know the elements of it. I suppose it would be a motion to approve the public improvement as suggested by Baseball Inc. for the Cold Spring Baseball Park, as well as the proposed finance plan for the project, something like that.
And then a separate motion for the maintenance piece.
Correct. Yep, that'd be a separate motion for the maintenance fees for the seating.
So if I understood that, so we're gonna approve the construction of the, formerly known as...
Construction financing.
The construction plans, yes. We're going to approve the construction plans, and we're going to advance financing not to exceed $100,000, which they're going to pay back at a 0% interest, or 0% interest rate in a period not to exceed 4 years.
Bingo.
Right? I made that motion.
Made the motion.
Good job. Thank you.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now as far as the seating,
Should we do that right now, or should we wait until they can find out for sure which way they want to go and have them come back and tell us which way they want to go?
It's up to you. All we would like to do, I guess, is put the two once they're done separately, put the finance part of it together. So hopefully we'll be able to, if it's 150,000 total, we'll be able to knock that 50 off immediately this fall already with funds that we will have. Take the other 100 and finance that over the 4 years, and hopefully that's where we can work out that roughly 12.5 a piece part of it.
so you're not in time constrained as much on the seating as you are as the deck?
The project is less time consuming, yeah. So
Okay.
we have a little bit of time. I think we still want to try to get everything done by the next time we come in. Hopefully come in front here is July 8th, I think, maybe. Hopefully we'll maybe have those numbers firm at that point, the two, and we can vote on which way we want to go, and then we can start that project
So
this fall.
that's your intention to come back at the July 8th meeting with that?
Hopefully if we can get everything in place by then.
Yeah, then we wouldn't need to...
That'll be entirely separate.
Yeah. Paul?
Yep, great idea.
I guess I'd just like to say that at the park board meeting last night, the park board is not comfortable with the stadium seating, the rhino decking, and wood supports under. I think everybody would like to see stadium seating, have some nice big comfortable seats, but they're just very concerned about all the weight. The rhino decking is extremely heavy, and then you have wood supports underneath it that's going to rot. So when the wood rots, then you have to take off all the rhino decking and redo the wood supports, and the park board does not support that. They want the aluminum replacing the wood boards. And then of course, sandblasting and painting the floor. Just so you know their take on it.
Okay.
So what I heard is that means that it's your job now to sell them, and so that they feel comfortable enough that they can come back and then sell us.
Well, and we'll need to sit down as our commission will need to sit down and decide, does it make sense to try to go and put time and effort into the rhino decking if we think that there's a legitimate concern. I know I spoke with the rhino decking person, Nick Damuth, former Coach Spring guy, Nick Damuth and Randy Bell. We were up there. That was a concern that was expressed, and we realized we needed to probably bring in a structural engineer to let us know if this is feasible or not. What we thought, one of the things that we thought was, when it's completely full of people, when you put the rhino decking on there, it'll be half the amount of people. So the weight, that'll change a little, and I don't know enough about it, so if we choose to move forward with it on our side, we'll need to bring in structural engineering and try to get an idea from them. Here's what the weight will be. Will this structure hold this? You know. Then if it does, then we can still have the discussion. Does it make sense to do this with the potential rotting of the wood and all that? And maybe as a group, we'll come back and maybe we'll all decide that maybe the metal seating is the best way to go. Price-wise, they're the same.
Is there a potential to do like VIP seating where this section is the rhino deck with the nicer seats and then you bench seat the rest of it, and so you have...
There is some stuff now, that gets probably more into what you were talking about earlier, about, because I personally think, and I don't know if this is the time to necessarily bring this up, but I personally think that there's 20 people right now that I could name that deserve to have some VIP seating up there, that have put 50 years in at the park. I don't know how that's going to go over with, you know, kind of what you intimated before, that how, with naming rights and who can and can't get it. But to me, it would be sort of almost a baseball Hall of Fame, and you get, instead of getting a plaque up at the school with the one, you get a chair with your name on it, something like that. Now the only problem with that is that wouldn't generate any financing for the project, but that would be, I think that would be a really nice idea. Show the history of the field all the way back to the Nick Bells of the world, the Dave Bell, and you know, Bill Halls, Norb Kaltoff, the history of the park, and both high school, amateur, everything, everybody that's ever played there. That's a whole, but that's an issue that we have discussed, and that's an idea too that I think we have a little more time. This one's more of a crunch, we're trying, but I mean, we have several things on the table with the seating that.
You know, because with the weight concerns, if you do it in the whole area, but if you would do it in a separate area and then keep this more as your...
Maybe like right behind home plate, which is obviously the VIP seating at like Target Field, and that's the prime spot, so maybe that's something that would work. Maybe that would alleviate your concerns for the weight issue if we just did bench seating on the majority of it, so that's certainly something we can.
Yeah, I think more of their concern was rotting wood, even more so than weight.
Okay.
Because maybe it could be rhino deck support,
Maybe it
instead
could
of
be.
wood support.
If you're doing, especially if you're doing just a smaller project. Yeah.
Paul, when's the next park board meeting?
Oh,
Because it sounds like this may have to go through the park board yet to come back to us?
serious, we did schedule it, I believe it's for November, but they would gladly get together again if we need to. Like, we had a park board meeting a couple weeks ago, and we had another one last night.
I thought we scheduled one for August, didn't we? August or November?
Well, either way, it would be too late for this, so I believe the park board would be fine with getting together again as needed.
I think we'll have to get together probably next week to go over the day at the park anyways. That's sometime next week, so that'll be something we'll have to try to iron out.
You can coordinate with Paul and they can figure out a park, because I think it should go back through the park board if they have some issues.
Okay.
So we can get a recommendation from the park board.
Okay.
Other questions for Tom then? Or anybody else from the baseball?
I think I might have one more.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I think Doug knows a little bit about that.
This just came up to my attention about 5 minutes before I came in here, but I'm looking for a one-day off-site premise license to sell strong beer from 3rd Street Brewery at the Day at the Park, which is Saturday. I don't know if you noticed. I didn't. Again, I just found out about this at about 7 o'clock tonight. So.
That has to go through the state, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well,
I think, doesn't it, or?
there's a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls that went back and forth today. Chris actually is in. There's no 3rd Street beer being sold at the concert this weekend, so there was some concern about, business 5 blocks from here not serving beer up there. History going on back and forth, but anyhow, Doug would like to see his product sold up there, and a way they could do it is get another license that sells hard, because they can't do it because it's strong beer, and a 3-2 license doesn't go, so you got to have the strong or the hard liquor license. And according to Chris, if they can find an establishment that wants to do it, and Doug said that 3rd Street Brewery could do it, they would move up there. Chris would need a certificate of insurance or whatever.
Yeah, let's do that.
And then that's it. It does not have to go through the state, because they already have a license. Now, if you had to get a license, then you would have to go through the process. But being they have a hard liquor license now, they you don't have to go through the state, you just need a license, or
Certificate of
certificate
insurance.
of insurance or whatever it
It's
is.
my understanding too that then they have to supply the people, because we wouldn't be able to supply.
Right.
It's all volunteer work for us, and we wouldn't be able to sell that either.
No, they would have, the establishment would have to serve it also, because you have to go through some, according to Chris, you have to have some schooling to
Correct.
serve liquor or something, you can't just.
And we have that for what we're doing, because we're getting the other license through the sidebar to have liquor up there, and we have to have people that have gone through the license training to be able to sell that up at the bar, and which we have done. So,
Bob,
Something that I just learned yesterday, this past legislative session changed some rules with regards to liquor and 3-2 licensing, and now they can sell strong beer, that kind of stuff. Maybe that, again, I'm not certain, but, because I just learned some of this yesterday. But it's possible that if they already have a 3-2 license, and if the state legislature has changed the law, it's possible that they can do it anyway. So, again, what I'm recommending is, let's pursue that, because maybe we can do it anyway. Let's pursue getting somebody else in there that would allow it. And if we can do it, if we can get with just a certificate of insurance, if we can make it so that it's a better project for these guys, better for the city of Cold Spring, why wouldn't we do that?
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I learned the same thing last week at the League of Minnesota Cities Conference. I was just telling Doug about it before the meeting, that for another place in town that wants to look at starting to serve 3rd Street that can't right now. So we could certainly look into that, but I mean, at least this is the safe way to do it right now, to be able to have the brewery do it, by motion. But next time around, we might not have this crisis if the laws changed to that favor. I know that had to do with wine and food and stronger drinks. I'm not sure about how it plays in with this.
And when does that law take effect? Usually it's not right away.
Yeah, I don't,
It's
Yeah,
usually
it could be July 1. There's a lot of July
1 or
1s.
August 1, yeah.
Right. That's a good point, too.
Chris did say that we'd have, that the council would need to pass our motion for that tonight, and then this, and now I'm hearing, this time they didn't know if it was gonna be the Blue Heron or the Legion or whoever. Now I'm hearing it's 3rd Street Brewery. They would have to have a license or their insurance to Chris by Friday, so that they can, get this license. So it's, it's gotta be a quick deal, because they're gonna have to get a hold of their insurance company to fax something or something. So
Correct.
that's what was kind of going back and forth through the day today. So I guess with that, I'll entertain a motion then.
I'll make that motion if it meets the requirements so we're not in violation.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anything else, Tom?
that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank you
evening.
guys for everything you've always done and working so well with the Baseball Association, and we'd like to continue doing it that way, and we like keeping you guys in touch, just like you guys keep us in touch, so.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Cool deal. Thank you.
List of bills and
Play
additions.
ball.
Recommendation to approve payment of the accounts payable according to the list and supplemental lists presented by city staff.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. General questions and comments from council. Bob?
Thank you. I've got 2 quick things. Paul, are you back? I have a quick thing that I want.
I'm sorry, I was just passing a report from Chief Boucher. He just wanted a written report too, so.
I just need you to do me a favor. Last time I was here, we had a little quick chat about the fact that elections are coming up and there's a filing period. And I was going to wonder if you could give us an update as to when the filing period is, and if you've had a chance to look into the training session with regards to potential candidates for the different city offices.
No, thank you. Election filing is from July 29th to August 12th, ending at 5 PM on that day. So even though our city hall hours end at 4:30 on August 12th, we will stay open until 5 o'clock per state statute to be able to, for anybody that may want to turn in interest in election candidacy. As for workshop, there are a couple things that have been brought to my attention that I need to, get together and work on. Chris Stockendorf and Lois Lees are both gone to election training, so there are certainly some things that we could bring forward and talk a little bit more about, but I know one thing that was brought to my attention specifically was about signs. So that's one thing that I would at least want to get everybody up to speed on what sign, we have some sign regulations as a city that are different, they're more restrictive than statute, so that I need to, anybody who's interested in that candidacy here or certainly across the city, we can make some of those materials available soon.
Thank you. And then the other thing, if I could?
Yep.
The other thing, I was wondering if on July 23rd, we could have a workshop, at which time we'll talk just basically the financial overview in anticipation of the budgeting process and all that kind of stuff. We could basically have a conversation with regards to where we going so that we can give city staff a better idea of what our expectations were. So the second meeting in July, the 23rd, I believe it is, can we have a workshop? You need a motion for that, Paul?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Just a workshop? Okay, good. Thank you.
Anything else from council? Public? If not, we're gonna go into a closed session then to do Paul's annual review at 8:42, or we'll take a 3-minute recess, come back at 8:45.